Welcome back to Native Strength. I'm your host, Hyapatia. This is our third and final episode on overcoming bullies. We're going to begin by looking at the bullies that sit in the north on the wheel of life. They sit in the north because they belittle our beliefs and values. We can often see this in teenage behavior. Some will put others down for their religion, sexual orientation, musical preferences, clothing choices, and other minor things that set one person apart from another. Now, normally, we grow out of such narrow-minded thinking. Bullies of the North do not. These bullies think they already know all the answers, and so they've closed their minds to learning. It's only by learning about other ways that we can make a more informed decision about our own beliefs. We can then intelligently debate the facts. The bullies of the North do none of this. They only see their point of view and aren't willing to look at anything else, not even for the purpose of a debate. This closed-mindedness comes from insecurity. Looking at other options becomes threatening to them. By denying the plausibility of other views, they ensure they won't be tempted to waver. When a North bully is trying to adhere to values that are in direct conflict with their sacred dream, they suppress it. They have to abandon either their belief or their dreams. The North bully has abandoned their sacred dream. When the North bullies encounter someone who reminds them of their dream, they lash out. These people are pursuing and enjoying what the North bully has denied himself. This causes great conflict, and rather than examine himself, this bully finds it much easier to attack others who represent what he's repressed. People who vehemently attack homosexuals are often North bullies. They think they're acting appropriately and always want to be seen as accountable for their actions. They'll always be irresponsible, though, because they haven't done the necessary work to fully understand the given situation from all directions on the wheel. They're doomed to live out this self-fulfilling prophecy. The North bully's favorite tactic is to put others down for their beliefs, their creativity, their career, and especially their originality. By doing so, they feel they've elevated themselves. They think others will see them as superior. They spend a lot of time and energy using their words to make us believe this, but their actions rarely match. Their goal is to make us react with anger. They try to find the areas in our logic where we're most vulnerable. They zero in on the points we're a bit unsure of, like the details of implementing a plan. It's by focusing on these areas that they're able to throw us off balance and get under our skin. This limits our creativity and can obstruct our success. Loved ones who are angry or depressed can be bullies who sit in the South on the bullies of the North wheel. These people are feeling pretty miserable inside, and they're either not using the tools they've been given or they have none. Because we love these people, we want to help them. If we don't have any advice for them, or if they don't follow the suggestions we give them, there may be little we can do to help them feel better, and so they continue to elevate themselves by putting us down or questioning our words, beliefs, and actions. Greedy, envious, and jealous people are in the west of the bullies of the North wheel. These people haven't been communicating with their inner personas, and so they never learned to love themselves for who they are, mistakes and all. They're jealous of our success, talent, or skill, and don't see the work that's gone into our achievements. They prefer shortcuts. Vindictive people sit in the north of the North wheel of bullies. These people think they've been wronged and are focused on revenge. They use the wisdom of the North to plot. They allow their enemies to live rent-free in their mind. They can also be suspicious and expect ulterior motives because this is how they act. Leaders who feel as though they have all the answers sit in the east of the northern bullies wheel. They feel as though they know the only correct way to go about life and insist that we follow their footsteps. When politicians sit here, they've forgotten they're supposed to be representing the will of the people. Instead, they've decided to impose their will on their constituents. These bullies affect us because we believe they have something we may want or need, like their friendship or our job. The irony of the situation is that this bully thinks you have something they need. We need the politicians to make good rules and laws. They need our votes. This bully will question your beliefs. So the key to counting coup on them is to stay grounded and hold firm to your convictions. Don't let yourself become angry or emotionally affected by them. These bullies teach us how to overcome any doubts we may have about our own beliefs and how to stand firm. The bottom line is we don't have to allow ourselves to be bullied by anyone. Bullies who bring about anger and rage sit in the northeast of the bullies' wheel. These infuriating people seem oblivious to the fact that they continually provoke us. They force us into the role of a victim. It's as if they're trying to break our spirit and throw us off balance. They typically have a passive-aggressive tendency, and that makes it even harder to confront this type of bully. For example, a man goes to a job interview with the intention of making a good impression and deciding if this firm would be a good fit for him. The human resource supervisor focuses on the fact that this man is divorced. He asks why the applicant feels as though his marriage was a failure. The man is offended by this. His marriage simply didn't work, and the interviewer is insinuating he's a failure. This line of questioning continues as inquiries are made about why he didn't pursue a graduate degree. It's clear this interviewer is using his power to intimidate. The man is no longer focused on getting the job and deciding if this company is a good place to work, but is instead defending himself against accusations of failure. He's angry and has lost his initial motivation for the interview. A woman goes to see her boss about a raise. The meeting starts with him complimenting her dress and shapely legs. This throws her off a bit. She wasn't expecting a sexist remark. She gets the feeling he really isn't listening to her as she states her case. He suggests they have dinner to discuss it further. This makes her angry, as it confirms her initial suspicions. He's more interested in dating her than rewarding her for her hard work. Now she's not thinking about the raise, but rather about how sexual advances shouldn't be made at work and contemplating how she'll handle the situation. These bullies have repressed anger. They're unable to give to others freely, which naturally means people don't want to give to them freely. In our example above, perhaps the male boss really wanted attention from the opposite sex to boost his low self-esteem. If he would develop a more friendly, compassionate attitude, he would probably have more success in his relationships. The human resource supervisor focused on the applicant's divorce because he assumed a failed marriage meant a bad employee. It was his own fear of failure that projected failure onto the applicant. The actions of these bullies create the fear of failure, rejection, and abandonment. This feeds on other key issues that can make people feel powerless and victimized. These bullies want to get their way by trying to distract us from our goals. They want us to make their priorities our priority. In the south of the northeast wheel of bullies are the domineering parents and partners. For example, the husband who demands his wife abandon her dream so she can be there to provide meals at a certain time. Or the wife who insists her husband is being irresponsible when he wants to go fishing on the weekend instead of working on a household project. Both people sit in the south of the northeast wheel of bullies. Domineering bosses and authority figures sit in the west of this northwest wheel of bullies. Since they have control over areas of our financial and physical security, the stress they cause can have repercussions for our health. The anxiety this type of bully creates doesn't end when work is done, but continues in the form of lost confidence and the threat of detrimental job references for years to come. It's no wonder they can provoke us to rage, since they affect our family and loved ones too. Politicians and people in positions of power who use their status to bend the rules or break them entirely sit in the north on the northeast bully's wheel. They can commit injustices that affect the right to control what happens to your body, medical benefits, voting rights, and even the right to live in our country. Terrorists sit in the east on the northeast wheel of bullies. Many criminal offenses are regarded as terrorists' attacks, as they strike fear into society even after the criminals themselves have been caught. Decades ago, someone poisoned bottles of Tylenol and put them back on the shelf. People died. To this day, manufacturers are required to seal items in multiple ways. Counting coup on this bully requires the absence of anger. We present facts, logic, and knowledge. In the example with the human resources executive, we could explain that our divorce was not a failure, but a sign of maturity. It shows we won't force things when they don't work, even if the idea was ours in the first place. The woman could explain to her boss that dating a coworker could be viewed by outsiders as sexual harassment. She could then say that the fact that she thinks this way, always putting the company first, shows that she deserves a raise. The East bully wants to control our spirit. They may be leaders of cults that dominate people and require no outside communication and want us to abandon our sacred dream in order to serve them. 2/3 of the world's population live under a dictatorship. These rulers use West bullies to dominate people, enforce their rule, and maintain control. Through their web of lies, they never let us realize our true vision for freedom. They use our low self-esteem to sculpt us into a complacent comrade. We're promised a better life, more money, and opportunities for success. We have to examine their actions to make sure they agree with their words. Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." There are many people today who believe we're being controlled or ruled by a shadow government, a cabal which manipulates markets, governments, and creates wars for ulterior motives. If this were the case, they would be following the teachings of Sun Tzu. They would be overpowering us without firing a single round. Another example of this type of bully includes extremely religious parents who discipline their children physically if they don't adhere to a strict code. The goal of these bullies, even if they don't know it, is to keep us from following our sacred dream because they've abandoned their own. When they see someone who's following their own path, it threatens them. Rather than trying to learn from what they see, they challenge our beliefs. Because these people are in positions of power, they have the ability to restrict our freedom, control our sacred dream, and impact not only our daily life experiences, but our very spirit. They can cause us to lose hope and to give up. This complacency will cause us to remain asleep, a victim, and just another sheep following orders. In the South are communists. All property is owned in common. People starve because private farming is outlawed, and items owned individually are removed by force to give to the community. No one cares to do their job well because they aren't rewarded, so things often don't work right. Communism was founded on the belief that it would make everyone equal and of the same class. But in reality, the government becomes the upper class and everyone else is the lower class, leaving no middle class. Intellectuals are seen as the enemy. The Khmer Rouge in Cambodia was so anti-technology that many people were murdered simply for wearing glasses. In the name of communism, 85 million people were murdered in the 20th century alone. Dictators sit in the west of the North Wheel of Bullies. In a dictatorship, absolute power and control rests in the hands of only one person. While this type of government is the most effective at making decisions because they're all made by only one person, they result in brutally oppressive behavior. The entire country is at the mercy of one bully. Totalitarian regimes sit in the north of the North Wheel of Bullies. Totalitarianism aspires to reduce the people it rules to faceless masses, deprived of individuality. People must adhere to the philosophies and beliefs of the state under a totalitarian regime. Authoritarianism sits in the east of the North Wheel of Bullies. Communism, socialism, and dictatorships are all forms of authoritarianism. Monarchies are naturally authoritarian, and there have been more of these types of governments throughout our history than any other. These types of bullies thrive on power. They themselves are usually very repressed. The lives of many princes and princesses were very sheltered, and so their limited experiences have made it difficult for them to learn. Quite often, they know of no other way to approach life, and so they use force to maintain control. When we want more money and a better way of life, we're opening ourselves up to the possibility of being dominated by any one of the East bullies. Simply by promising more jobs, higher wages, and safer streets, many dictators have been given complete control. When these bullies go unchecked, they'll have strong impacts on our physical world. Not only will our livelihood be affected, but our health and safety can be jeopardized. These bullies call for extreme measures. New Hampshire's motto, "Live free or die," embodies the attitude and approach necessary to address these bullies. The North bully wants to control us, take away our freedoms and choices, and use us as a resource to fulfill his own personal greedy goals. These bullies control us by throwing off our timing and disrupting our patterns. For example, Hitler's soldiers kept people moving quickly from place to place, so the people didn't have time to think or prepare. Diversionary tactics keep us off balance and easier to manipulate. When confronted with a North bully, we may have to either become a refugee or fight for our freedom. It's the quality of life that's worth fighting for. The freedom to raise our children to follow their sacred dream. In Native American culture, we've always known that there are causes worth dying for, and when we see that fighting is necessary to secure a future for our children and their children, we have a saying, "It's a good day to die." This teaching on bullies actually starts in the Southeast, as most wheels do, but I've saved it for last because it's often the most difficult direction to fully comprehend. The Southeast bully is the part of our inner self that acts as a bully to our own soul. This bully uses comparison, attachment, judgment, expectation, self-importance, and our wounded child to manipulate us. These emotions can stop us from following our sacred dream and fulfilling the plans our soul made for us in this life. We must know that feeling dependent, as though we can't follow our dream without the help and support of another, is an illusion. We may tell ourselves we're not able to succeed or that we're not worthy. When we compare ourselves to others, we'll always come up short. We'll feel like we're not smart enough, rich enough, skinny enough, or whatever. When we set expectations, we set ourselves up for failure. Expectations are the seeds of disappointment. If we don't expect anything, we won't be disappointed. Self-importance makes us feel like we should be the priority in everyone's life. Conversely, everyone else thinks they should be the priority in our life. When we feel we're not worthy of love in our original form, we undermine ourselves. If we try to achieve our goals, it's half-hearted and with an expectation of failure. That's because we think we deserve to fail. The cause of all of this is fear. We fear failure and the unknown. Even when our current situation is very unfulfilling, it's better than the horrible things we dream up in our imagination. As a consequence of our fear holding us back, our default setting becomes angry and frustrated. We're not following our sacred dream. Some people can bury this for years. They can punch a clock at a job they hate for decades because they have effectively buried their sacred dream. Others can't. Even those who've denied their dreams may find themselves waking up to their misery one day and not fully understanding their emotions. The Southeast bully limits our vision. They only see one option, like working at a job I mentioned before. Going out to find a better job or going back to school never crosses the mind. If the Southeast bully gives us more than one point of view, all are dark. In the example of the dead-end job, one might only see the options of talking to the boss, changing departments, or working different hours. That's because we doubt ourselves. We may doubt our ability to impress a prospective employer or fit in with new coworkers. We imagine a situation that's worse than the one we're in, and so we're frozen in our tracks. This bully can also make it difficult to communicate with our inner personas, and particularly our inner elders. When the Southeast bully fills our head with judgments, doubts, and comparisons, it becomes impossible to hear the voices of our inner children, adults, and those elders who give us advice, love, and guidance along our path. The Southeast bully wants to keep us safe. When it's fully active, we feel afraid and powerless. It tells us that by not taking chances or risks, we'll be safe. This is like saying that if we stay in bed all of our life, we won't run the risk of being in an accident. Now, while it may be true, that's no way to live life. If we hobble ourselves, we won't be able to pursue our sacred dream, and our soul will make little advancement in this lifetime. The Southeast bully wheel starts in the South with our projected perceptions. When we assume someone thinks or feels a certain way simply because we may feel that way in a similar situation, we've projected our perceptions onto them. For example, if we say hello to our neighbor in the store and they don't respond, we may think it's because they're angry at us, because our visitor blocked their driveway last week. In all actuality, our neighbor may not have heard us. Since we may have gotten angry over our driveway being blocked, we've projected our feelings onto them. When we feel another has decided we're unworthy or underqualified without actually hearing them say such things, we're being a South bully of the Southeast to ourselves. In the west of the Southeast wheel of bullies are our pretense experiences. If our spouse works overtime consistently and gets suspicious calls in the evenings and on weekends, we may convince ourselves that they're having an affair. This may not actually be the case. They may be planning a surprise getaway for our anniversary. If we operate under this pretense of assumed infidelity and become distant or even pursue an affair, we could ruin a great marriage. The fear feeders are in the north of the Southeast wheel of bullies. These are the voices in our head that feed on our fears. They tell us negative things about how we're impatient, unprepared, stupid, and slow. Now, at one time, these things may have been true, or perhaps they never were. The point is, they're never said with loving kindness. The purpose of these words is not to help us to advance on our path or to become wiser, but to belittle us. The East bully on the Southeast wheel is illusion. A beautiful, healthy woman who looks in the mirror and sees a fat or ugly reflection is dealing with an East bully of the Southeast wheel. When a drug addict looks at his life and thinks everything is under control, this bully has taken over. When we have low self-esteem, we become afraid of change because we doubt our abilities. This creates anger. We know in our hearts we need to change, but our fear of failure keeps us from it. When we've been distracted from our sacred dream by our fear, the anger grows over time and is expressed in the way we go about life. The key to counting coup on this bully is to regain our self-esteem. When we have self-esteem and are in constant communication with our inner personas, the Southeast bullies are silenced. Fear opens the door to this bully, and the biggest fear is the unknown. When we know all of the variables, we can make an educated guess as to what will happen. Education is the way to conquer fear. After traveling around the Wheel of Bullies, you can see how people often use several directions and methods as arrows in their quiver to manipulate others. Being human, we occasionally see these bullies reflected in the mirror as we interact with others. We may also see how we bully ourselves. When we understand the ways we bully ourselves and others, we get a much deeper understanding of why others choose these methods. We can embrace these bullies with compassion because we know them as ourselves. We're no stranger to these ways. It's not pleasant to know we've bullied another or ourselves, but remember, bully is often an unnecessarily strong word. We're simply trying to get our needs met with our limited tools and abilities. When we're not following our sacred dream, a bully may be called to us to give us a nudge. If our own Southeast bully doesn't do the trick, another direction may be needed. There have been times in my life that I have been so stubborn that I needed to be visited by many directions before I got the message. Now, to be clear, I didn't feel as though I was blessed or being given a nudge. Instead, I felt like my entire world had come crashing down and everything I held dear had been ripped from me and my heart was irreparably broken. It was only years later that I was able to look back and see that if these events had not occurred, I would never have left my complacency, stretched my wings, and taken flight. Thank you for watching. I hope you dance your sacred dream awake and walk in beauty. Ooh.